Are you really good at starting things and then get halfway through and decide that maybe there's something else really good that you could do? And that's something I experience quite a bit. Something that I've realized I used to see as a flaw, and now I see as my ADHD brain seeking dopamine when it's gone and looking at ways in which I can kind of deal with that going forward. So, this is for those of you who have ADHD and struggle with following through on things, but also if you suffer from shiny object syndrome, this might help as well, even if you don't have ADHD. So, like, when I'm thinking about things, I sort of feel, hmm, I've got really good. This is going quite well, but maybe it's not going as well as it could. So perhaps I could do something else, and that might be a bit better. And so that's kind of like where my brain is often. And it's not that, like, I know that it's building and it's growing and it's taking its time and it's getting there. But my brain is like, right, I need that hit now. I need that hit now. It needs to be doing more. It needs to be doing more. And I've always struggled with what I would say is like impatience. So I can't, if it's a long project, I really struggle to wait until the end to see the results because I'm like, I just want to get it done. And I want the results now. And you can't always get them. And that can actually lead to a lot of frustration and fatigue. And you can almost feel a bit confused because you think, I'm actually enjoying what I'm doing, but now I'm kind of like fed up with it because I've not got the outcome yet. And now I understand that from an ADHD perspective, that's because the ADHD brain kind of needs a bit of instant gratification. And if it's a long game, so you're kind of like halfway through and that gratification has not come, then it's hard to find that motivation to kind of carry on. Um, so, um, so when we're talking about ADHD and the nervous system, the ADHD brain, and so obviously the nervous system is what I was going to lead into this, it works on novelty and on dopamine and on reward. Okay, so when we get that dopamine drop after the excitement fades, and that's the moment where our motivation will collapse. And whether you have ADHD or not, you might still suffer from this. So you really get into things, it's really exciting, and then it's kind of like just doing the legwork, and then it kind of becomes a bit boring. Motivation collapses, and you find it really hard to actually do the work. And so part of what's happening as well then is because your dopamine is dropped, because the excitement has gone, you're then actually, the body will then interpret what's going on in the brain as I'm bored or this isn't working as a bit of a nervous system dysregulation as well, because you'll then push yourself out of that regulated state because your body is then like, oh, there's something wrong because this dopamine is dropped and I don't feel great anymore. So then it all starts to feel a little bit like, oh, this is all a bit off. And that's when, with a lack of awareness, you can actually start to believe that you are out of alignment with what you're doing, when in reality it's just actually your dopamine is dropped, which is very different to when you have clear intuition that maybe a pivot is needed or a change is needed. So like that, basically their brain is interpreting the boredom or the slowness as danger, which is what the body is then picking up on and then feeding that back in a loop. But it's really just a drop in stimulation. So there are obviously different ways in which you can deal with this. One of it is by giving yourself little dopamine highs through the task that you have to do. So that could be by ticking things off or giving yourself a reward when you've done certain elements along the way. And that can always help to give you that little kick. But also it's helping to kind of reframe the mindset as well and bringing in the concept of the process of trust and the middle stage of growth. So seeing that as a positive, so seeing that as something to win, right? Can you win by getting through the middle stage? Can you win by trusting the process? And obviously, one of the things that happens is our culture actually feeds into ADHD because the culture in the Western world, it rewards quick wins. It rewards you for getting that instant hit. And we actually live in a world, when you think about social media, we're constantly feeding ourselves with dopamine hits. And so actually, like society is feeding the ADHD loop and helping kind of keep us on that dopamine hit train. And so it's kind of like about getting the idea that slow growth is the nervous system learning stability. So it's about learning that stability, understanding it. So again, that can be a win. Can I actually figure out how to learn to be stable through this stage? And, just knowing that you're actually going at the pace that's right for you and starting to shift. And when you get this as well, so add on to it, often what will happen is when you are doing the whole, oh, I'm getting bored, oh, I want to switch, oh, I know it's my brain and I'm struggling and all of these things, you will then quite often shift into self-criticism. Why can't I stick at it? Why am I finding this so hard? I'm not good enough to do this. And then you make the situation worse. So also as well, when we're doing this reframe into, I'm getting through that middle stage, I'm getting through that growth stage, I'm allowing myself to get through that, allowing yourself to be compassionate towards yourself, using compassionate awareness and saying, I am aware I am hitting that stage where my dopamine is dropped, where I'm struggling to get the motivation to do the work needed to get me over the line. Even though I've done all the really hard work, this is the last bit to get me over the line. And offering yourself that compassionate awareness that it's hard and you're accepting that it's hard, but you're going to find a way and find a solution to keep that momentum going. So, this whole idea of wanting to quit feeling can show up somatically in the body as restless energy, tension, racing thoughts, and avoidance. So this is when you'll notice procrastination coming in, or an inability to concentrate on what you're doing, and your brain being full of ideas. All of a sudden, there's going to be loads of different ideas coming in. And so when the nervous system feels unsafe in stillness, the mind kind of invents reasons to escape. And so when we're in this kind of like this growth stage where things are growing, but nothing's really going in this big momentum, we can feel like it's stillness. And then if your nervous system is used to high-paced everything, doing this, doing that, doing the other, that can feel very unsafe, especially if you have the kind of brain that's always looking for novelty, you're always looking at shiny objects, you're always do. When you're actually just like, okay, well, I'm just going to, do the steady stuff that's going to allow me to grow. I'm going to stick to doing this stuff that I'm doing on a routine every day. So for me, it's like turning up and doing YouTube every day and doing my posts and turning up in my groups and engaging and doing that just as a matter of course, right? I'm not necessarily going to get anything out of doing that. And it's continuing to turn up and do those things. And knowing that actually sometimes that can lead to dysregulation because it's like, what am I getting? Like my body feels like, oh, okay, hang on a minute. There's no dopamine hit out of this. So there must be something wrong. And so we try to find a reason to stop doing those things. And so part of that becomes how you can make doing those daily tasks a bit of a dopamine hit as well. So that's I work on that. One of the things I do, and this has actually been really helpful for me to keep myself doing those daily tasks that can become mundane and lack a reward, is every day I set myself a time for how long it will take to plan out and record and post my YouTube video. And then I time myself doing it. So I try and beat my deadline. Now, I've been stuck on a deadline for a little while and it's been a bit easy to make. So I'm feeling now that I've got to shorten my deadline to put myself under a bit more pressure, because then there's more of a hit when I actually reach it or don't reach it. It doesn't really matter. It's the actual act of trying to do it and then crossing it off once it's done. And so little tricks like that can fool the brain into getting those dopamine hits, to sticking and doing those things again and again and again, so they keep coming back and doing them. And then obviously through that, regulating the nervous system. So when you feel like, oh, I'm dysregulating, I'm going this way and that, bringing yourself back into balance as well. And just really feeling how you feel. So tuning into that. So how does that lack of momentum actually feel in your body? And always tuning into that and bringing that awareness into what is happening in your body. So you can even pause and take a deep breath and bring your awareness into your body when you notice, like say you've got an urge to quit or an urge to pivot or to do something different, and notice where that sits in your body. And then just breathe and label it as energy and not failure. Okay, so you can just breathe into that as energy. Okay, that energy is feeling like it wants to go that way, but it doesn't have to go that way. And where does it feel in my body? And so and then you can actually allow yourself to release that energy if you feel that's something you're capable of doing. You can actually release it out, either down through the earth or just out of the body. Allow yourself to release it wherever you feel natural to release it. And just notice where you are and notice how that feels to release it. So yeah, and that's something to become aware of on a day-to-day basis, is reflect on how you're personally using that awareness in your work, in your life, and everything that you're doing, and just being aware of where you are and seeing how much trust you can bring into that slow momentum. And that's what I'm working on as well, right? How much trust can I bring into, right, I'm in a growth stage and I know that it's going to be a bit slower at this point and then it's going to take off in a bit. But I need to keep doing the things that I'm doing to keep the momentum going. And that's what I'm working on quite a lot. That's staying in the momentum, staying in the flow, even though the dopamine hit is not quite as high, which is why I'm doing the timing and I'm looking for different ways in which, because like anything, when you get it's dopamine hit, the timing will work for a certain amount of time and then I might get a bit bored with it. Although it's worked for quite a long time now. And that's quite a positive one. So it's looking at just those little tricks and techniques that will work for you, that will keep you coming back and redoing and sticking to those daily tasks. And the truth is that when we're in this stage, and this is one of the things that I've been working on a lot, when I'm in this stage of feeling like I'm in that middle and that slow growth, and that might be personal growth, it might be business growth, it might be anything, right, emotionally. It's holding the faith that I'm doing the right things and taking the right steps and I'm moving in the right direction, at the same time as holding the doubt of, is this right? Should I still be doing this? And that holding that doubt with the faith and allowing myself to stick with my path, I think is one of the biggest challenges that I'm working with now and that I'm learning and that I'm actually getting better and better at. And just remembering that nervous system based patience is the real practice. So when I'm doing it, I'm coming back into my nervous system. How does it feel? How can I hold those competing thoughts? How can I bring that to my balance? And it's not about forcing the motivation. It's about doing it from, well, it is slightly forcing the motivation, but it's doing it from a place where you want to do it. So, because if you try and force yourself to do something and there's no payoff, there's no pleasure, there's only so long you're going to be able to do that for. So that's why it's coming to a regulated state and finding the ways in which you can add the motivation to keep going. So you're actually creating motivation rather than forcing it. So there's a slight nuance there. So when your ADHD brain wants to give up, it's not a sign that you're failing. It's a sign that your system needs safety and not speed. So I would like to encourage you to take one small grounding action today rather than starting over. Okay, so how can you take one small grounding action that's keeping you going in the direction that you need to go in? And that's the key. So take that step today. Share it in the comments if you want what you're going to do. And remember to like and subscribe to the video. And if you would like to connect more, have more practices, more nervous system work, and know all the things that I'm working on as well, come and join me in my free group, The Sacred Pause. I will put the link in the description and I would love to see you on the inside.